It's a drive. A dirty dozen. Chisholm goes deep.
Hello and welcome to the Pinstripe Post. My name is Ryan Sampson, but he's the star of the show, Joel Sherman. Today is Monday, April 13th. The New York Yankees are coming off a sweep in a bad way, getting swept by the Tampa Bay Rays down in Tampa and losing 2 out of 3 to the A's. Since the last time we spoke to Joel, they've lost 5 in a row, and we're here to talk about it. As always, before we get to any of that, though, on a Monday morning, Joel Sherman, how you doing today, sir?
Good. I was actually at the Met game yesterday afternoon when the Yankees lost their 5th in a row. The Mets also lost their 5th in a row. And the lead to my column was, I'm old enough to remember when New York baseball was thriving. That was last Tuesday. Both teams were in first place. We were doing positive shows about the Yankees here, writing positively about the Mets. And now the A's, who don't play in Oakland anymore, are briefly playing in a minor league park, or may probably end up in Vegas, if I'll believe it when I see that stadium totally built. Well, for a week, they came here and felt like home. The A's, the Vagabond A's, came in here and won 5 out of 6 against the 2 New York teams. Amazingly, they closed out both series winning 1-0 against both New York teams. Look, I know we'll get into it all, but why don't I use the Mets as the example of how long a season is? I know we won't have anything close to logic step into our way, but the 2024 Mets were 11 games under 500 after over 2 months of the season and went to the NLCS. So we're into June. Last year, they got to June 13th as the best team in the majors. I know a baseball columnist in town who looks a lot like me, who wrote that they had finally kind of figured out the sustainability model. Right owner, right top executive in David Stearns, right manager in Mendoza. And from that point forward, they were one of the worst teams in the sport. And I still don't know how they missed the playoffs, and they missed it. It is an incredibly long season. I assume everyone, possibly with the exception of the Dodgers, is going to go through big lulls this season. And both New York teams are going through it now. Is it indicative of something? It might be. But my suspicion is these are 2 good teams. I still think the Yankees are actually a very good team, but we're probably going to dig into a lot of stuff about why they've lost 5 in a row and what it all could mean. But I would suspect this, Ryan, even if they end up winning, let's make a number, 94 games again, they'll probably have another 5-game losing streak someplace along the way where you and I will be breaking down why they look terrible. I think both New York teams are good. I think the Mets are in a little dangerous place because they're out west without Soto and have to play the Dodgers now, and they've got a bad vibe about them. And you don't want to lose too much contact. But again, they were 11 games under 500, more than 60 games into the season 2 years ago, and got to the 6th game of the NLCS. So anyway, I'm off my soapbox about how long the season is, and now let's kill the Yankees.
Well, it's well said, Joel, and I think that's what a lot of Yankees fans are searching for right now is this indicative of this team right now? Is the first, however many games we talked about, I think 9 games sample size, is that more indicative of the team, or is this last 6 games more indicative of the team? Look, it's 15 games in a long 162 game season. I think.
Can I make a generalized statement, Ryan? I hate to cut you off, but so to me, I feel like this is an early part of a boxing match. We're in round 1 of a heavyweight fight, which when I was a kid used to last 15 rounds. They last 12 now. And we've got a long, long way to go. But you are watching the feeling out process. And if I were a Yankee fan, there would be 2 things that would greatly concern me about the team right now. Number 1 is the thing you worried about coming into the season, which was the length of the bullpen. And I think now you even have to worry about they've really had to push David Bednar early. I think he's going to at best be a John Wetland-esque closer, which means there's going to be a lot of tightrope walking. And I covered a Yankee team. My last Yankee team that I covered, the 1995 Yankees, Buck Showalter put him on ice during the postseason because he didn't think he could handle the Mariners, and he stopped being the closer. And then the next year, he was the World Series MVP, John Wetland, and the Yankees won. So, I think David Bednar has a good fortitude and generally good stuff, and he's lost a couple of miles an hour on his fastball. I think he absolutely does not trust his fastball. I have real questions about Duvall. I'm curious who Bird and Hedrick are. Carlos Legrand has not gotten off great as far as throwing strikes in the minor leagues. I thought he was going to be part of the answer at some point this season. We'll see if that ultimately happens. But the thing that we thought could be the soft spot on the team, I think, is a worry. The other one is the game got sped up in Tampa Bay, in St. Petersburg, and the Yankees looked like crap dealing with a faster game.
Yeah.
They were unhinged by Chandler Simpson in particular. This was a team I believe, and I still believe, is much better defensively than the last few incarnations of the team. Nevertheless, the game got faster and the Yankees looked bad.
Yeah.
And to me, I know we'll probably talk a lot of lineup stuff, but I actually believe this about the lineup, Brian. I think Aaron Judge is an historically great player, and if Aaron Judge had hit well for the first 3 weeks of the season, the Yankees would be 13-2. If Jazz Chisholm, who I assume will be at least a 25-25 guy, had hit well early this season, the Yankees would probably be 12-4. 12-3. They would be better. Like I know we're going to talk about guys at the back of the lineup and what do you do about it, but they need their big guys to hit. And Judge has some superficial numbers, but hasn't really hit in big spots like we expect him to. And Judge and Jazz hasn't hit at all. And I still think the Yankees are going to average 5 runs and score 800 runs this year. So to me, as I'm watching the feeling out process early this season, of this long heavyweight fight that is the season, the bullpen and what I thought the Yankees had improved a grade or two on defense, and I did not like what it looked like when the game sped up on them over the weekend in Tampa Bay. The Rays, who historically have gotten under the Yankees' skin by playing in that way, got under the Yankees' skin. They played their style. The Yankees didn't hit the ball out of the park enough, and they swept the series. So anyway, again, I got on my soapbox there. I didn't mean to cut you off, but those are the two that I'm watching a lot. And I'm happy to talk about the lineup. I know we will. It is not nearly the concern to me that the other two issues are.
No, look, I think you're making very astute observations. It's true in what you're saying. The bullpen we can talk about in a little bit. Brett Hedrick is getting used and abused right now, which I find interesting. But the way that the Rays were attacking them on the base pass was definitely concerning. They could not hold a runner on if they tried to. The other thing to note about this Yankees team is they are 0-6 to start the year, Joel, in one-run games, which is pretty crazy that they've gotten off to that bad of a start.
The Yankees did not play well over the weekend.
They didn't.
But one thing I will say about one-run games is we have learned historically they're very fickle. The other one, I'll tell you something. I mentioned this, I believe, on MLB Network the other day. Back when I want to say I was still a beat guy, so this is probably the early 90s. Maybe I'm just a young columnist. It's the mid 90s. Billy Beane was running, famously of Moneyball, was running the A's front office. And the Yankees were in probably one of these periods when they had already turned into a good team, where they were losing close games. And Billy was part of what I, over the years, have called like my office of logic. I have like 10, 15 people I would call like at a moment like this, where, you want to make sure what you write isn't overly emotional. And you want to kind of like talk to what you think are the smart people in the game. And he said, Joel, when you're good, you lose close games. I said, what? He said, when you're good, that's what you do. He said, when you win big and you win close.
Yeah.
But you lose close. Right. You don't lose big. Like the Yankees have been one hit away from being undefeated, essentially, to this point, right? Like they're losing close games. And that's really how, when you think about why run differential matters, is the Yankees are still in their division. I think they're plus 21. The only other team in the division that's plus, I think the Orioles are plus 1. So like the Yankees are following a model, I think, of a good team, which is they win big and win close, and they lose close. Now they've lost these close games, which I think, again, have exposed some stuff on defense in the bullpen, which is, again, why I'm looking at that stuff more than anything, because I feel like they've been a hit away, but like the bullpen could have held some games and didn't. The defense could have been tighter against Tampa and wasn't. And so, like, while I think the offense will get better and will average 5, and then we'll have the whole other discussion if they'll hit in the postseason or not, this group of players, if they get there. the areas that these are the areas when they lose close games that I am looking at. Though the most overt thing is, hey, if McMahon just gets a hit, or why didn't he pinch hit this guy? And like, I think they're going to score. The other areas are the ones that are not as certain for me.
That's understandable. I hear you. Let's stick on the defensive part and let's talk about the big elephant in the room, which is Jazz Chisholm. His play on Saturday when he has the chance with a double play, bases are loaded in extra innings. He can't field the grounder to second cleanly. He can't tag the runner that's running to second. He tries to throw to first. There's no play. They score. Tampa Bay wins the game. His post-game comments, quite alarming. Raised a lot of the red flags in what he said, not really understanding the situation, understanding the rules of tagging the player and then throwing to first would have caused double play. He says he thought he could actually throw to first and potentially tag back at second. Joel, it was an inexcusable play. It was an inexcusable explanation after the game, but I want to hear your take on Jazz Chisholm and where he is going right now in this contract year. It's been a troubling 15-game start for Jazz Chisholm overall.
Yeah, look, Ryan, we've done this show for at least parts of 3 years now. And so we were doing it when the Yankees traded for Chisholm. And I know everyone was pretty much over the top about it. And then he hit a bunch of home runs. And I was the negative Nancy the whole time saying, I don't like the trade. I don't like the player that much. And it has nothing, it's interesting. I think Boone said something really interesting. He talked about how smart Jazz is. And I do. I think Jazz is one of the smart. If you talk to Jazz Chisholm, you walk away and you've talked to a smart guy. But I don't know that it translates on the field well. Under kind of like making good decisions on both sides of the ball and on the bases. He is always going to be among the most talented players on the Yankees and in the whole sport. He is capable of some of the stuff he's talked about. I don't know that he'll ever get to 50-50, but he's certainly capable of 30-30, and there's not a heck of a lot of guys who could do that. We've seen it. I suspect at some point this year, he'll go on a run. His stolen bases are already up. He'll get to those easy as he stays healthy. I think the ball will go out of the ballpark for him and a lot of other Yankees as the season goes along. But the question is, if you believe in the concept of winning player or not, and I do, is he a winning player? And I think we've certainly seen a lot of stuff over his, part of 24, all of 25, couple of weeks of 26 to say that like he can win it and he can lose it. He's that kind of guy. And I think for a team with great championship aspirations, it's a player, look, with everything that went wrong against Toronto last year, if he fields the ball and makes there was a ball in that, right? Was it game 4?
Yep.
It just like, when's it going to come? And I think it was a tough chance the other day. It's on turf, runners moving, lots going on. I think he was screened by Cody Bellinger in a strange situation with a fifth infielder. So, but was he also well thought out? One of the things you have to be thinking to yourself is, if I get a ball, Yandy Diaz is slow. Can I do a tag and an out? Like, you've got to be thinking about, how do I get out of this inning? Like what's the speed of the ball that I must go home? What's the speed of the ball where I could get to? And you certainly have to know the rule, which is you've got to eliminate the force before you could throw to first base. Otherwise, the run's going to score. And so, look, he's going to go on a run soon where everyone, the fickle who kind of like move in and out and, break up with their significant other, then start dating again, then break up and start dating again. Like, that's what we do with a lot of baseball players. Like, Jazz is sitting with 0 homers. I think he'll hit 30. Like, the weather will get warm, Jazz will get hot, as long as he plays 145 games. And so he's going to have a run soon where he hits the ball. The question is, when you're playing for everything, is he a guy you want? And I think because of that, he ends up being, we've talked a lot about his free agency because, like, bless him, like, most guys are not honest. He talked to reporters about his free agency, gave a price range he thinks he belongs in. And it only always takes one. Like, it doesn't matter what the second place was for Pete Alonso, which my reporting and suspicion says was not close to 5 at 155. But a team offered 5 at 155. What's it matter what the second place is? So maybe there'll be a team that will jump out big for Chisholm. But I think the sport is aware of him. I think the Yankees probably offered him around a little this offseason. And the fact that he's so talented and they didn't hear what they wanted to hear in return would suggest that the league is making a statement about him.
Well, it's interesting talking about the playing for everything, the Yankees in the postseason. That's the most important thing here. Jazz's comments this past week about playing in the cold and how he doesn't like playing in the cold and it's tough to play in the cold. All I can think about, Joel, is what happens in October when it gets cold again and we're past the summer months. How are you going to handle that? It's already not been a great showing for him in the postseason. So am I crazy to think that maybe this guy just isn't made, like you're talking about, for playing in the cold months and playing in the most important games in October? I don't know if it's going to work out here for him this year with the Yankees.
Yeah, it's just in my mind. When the Yankees last won the World Series in '09, the ALCS in New York was brutal, cold. Like you feel like Yankee Stadium's one of the last fully outdoor press boxes, and there's a little bit of a wind tunnel on that level also, so you get it in the box. So like whatever they're feeling outside, if you're staying, and I'm among those who believe if you're covering the game, you've got to brave the elements and sit in the press box for 9 innings and watch the game. And I'm bringing it up because I remember I think one of them was Eric Ibar, and I'm struggling to remember who the shortstop was on those Angels teams. But they were dressed as if they were going to have to climb Everest in those games. And I mean, it was legitimately like I'm almost not even talking about their toughness or anything. It was freezing for those games in New York. But their two middle infielders were like so bundled up. And I remember, I hope I'm giving credit to the right person. I think Ian O'Connor, who now works for The Athletic and is a friend of mine, was sitting near me. And he said something like, look at those guys. They're never going to win. Like the elements are already beating them.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, what an astute thought about it, because it's like, was clear like the Angels kind of wanted a little bit. Some of them wanted no part of the fight. It felt like they couldn't deal with how it was. And look, in September and especially October, if the Yankees go far, it's going to be cold here.
Yeah, it gets real cold.
Like, I don't think we're building a retractable dome in the next 6 months. And I don't think the weather patterns, whatever's going on with our weather patterns, I don't want to turn it into a political show or a science show, but like, I assume it's going to be very cold in October. Right. And so
I love this episode already.
Yeah. So, you got to be able to, like, part of being a pro is you got to deal with it all. And I'm always vexed by this, Ryan, because on one hand, we scream for honesty. Like, I want guys to be honest. And Jazz, man, he is honest. He's honest. But like, the honesty is also revelatory. So it's like a vexing situation. Like, you don't want to punish somebody for not clichéing you to death and not bullshitting you to death. On the other hand, you are kind of judged by what comes out of your mouth. And it's some interesting stuff every once in a while.
Yeah, I just thought it was a tough.
But bless him. I'll take the honest guy every day of the week.
Gives us a good story to talk about, right? Every time, especially like I said in those post-game moments.
And also, we deal with too much bullshit in our life at every level of our life. It's nice when people don't do that to us.
Yes, this job is hard enough on the writers to get a good answer, a good quote.
And every job, like, you call the electric company and they're bullshitting you if whatever you're like it's good not to deal with bullshit.
I completely agree with you. Well, look, while the Yankees are swept, you talked about the offense. I do want to ask you about the lineup. Obviously, there was a lot of panic and freaking out about Grichuk and his at-bats, why he wasn't getting pinch hit for. Also, real quick, before we get to any of that, is Paul Goldschmidt hurt? Why isn't he getting any opportunities here over the weekend?
Well, if you had this, I was in New York watching the game on Saturday, and I actually sent a text to Greg Joyce and, facetiously, I hate to even say it in a I'm not going to say it. I asked him if something had occurred to Paul Goldschmidt that had made him incapable of taking the at bat, because I quite frankly didn't understand why he wouldn't be taking that at bat. Or by the way, like I would have even done JC Esquera and at least had the lefty righty. You got Rice on the field if you need the backup catcher later in the game. So I didn't get it. And look, again, let's see if I do a little Joel story time. And so I used to do a weekly like hour show on New York One that was kind of like at about the same time with a good friend of mine, Steve Cangelosi, and I had gone to college together. We started doing a show on Thursday night, New York baseball thing. And I remember it was like during the dynasty, a caller called in, and I realized then, it was like, I don't know why it struck me all of a sudden. And the internet was not the internet then what it is now. And he was like, when are they going to give up on Louis Soho? And I was like, you are worried about Louis Soho? I said, this team's going to win 100 games. What are you talking about? Like, where you could really worry about deck chairs on the Titanic. And I was like, oh, a lot of fans are only going to be happy if they're miserable. And baseball's tough. And somebody is always not going to be going well. You're not going to have 26 going well. Having said that, I would assume Grichuk's rope is not a particularly long one. Volpe will be back probably by the end of the month. The good news in all of this, and again, the storm is coming on this also. The Yankees still have not taken on an injury. It's like amazing. Their only in-season roster move was to remove Cade Winquist because he wasn't going to play for the team. But since the beginning of spring training, they knew 4 guys were going on the IL. They have not made another IL move. If that continues, the Yankees are going to have to make a decision. Is this decision for Volpe, if everyone stays healthy, is it Esquera and Rice becomes the backup catcher and then Goldschmidt plays a little more? Or is it Grichuk and then Caballero and Rosario become the right-hand hitting outfielders under the, along the way? And if it's both at some point, does Jason Dominguez, who's gotten off very, very strongly at AAA, does he eventually do it? He hasn't had a lot of at-bats, but I did notice it was like, really, you took a small sample size. Going into yesterday, I was just curious. I think he was 2 for 5 off left-handers with a homer. So, I'm sure the Yankees want to see a lot more at-bats against lefties. If he's hitting lefties, he's a much better option than Grichuk because he also can hit lefty and take an at-bat for somebody. He can run. He's stealing bases down there also. So, like, at some point, he's going to do it. And, look, I will throw open this possibility also. One of the things, and this is one of those guys also, I've never loved Trent Grisham as a player. Okay.
Slow start for him
but
as well.
I think, but Trent Grisham did the kind of best thing you could do in sports last year. He won a job. Dominguez was a starting outfielder, and Grisham outplayed him. And by the end of the year, just became obvious the Yankees had the most productive outfield pretty much in baseball with Bellinger, Grisham, and Judge. Yep. He just outplayed him. There is nothing to say that Dominguez can't outplay Grisham at some point this year. I still believe Dominguez will get a shot. The Yankees will have injuries at some point. And if the Dominguez who has played the first 3 weeks, by the way, in cold weather at AAA and produced, if he comes up and hits, again, the Yankees are playing for everything. Grisham played over a younger player. If that was the Rockies or the White Sox, that wouldn't have happened. Like the Yankees had to play the guy who's playing the best. And Grisham was playing the best. Will Dominguez ultimately do that? I actually think they have an interesting short-term one, or maybe it's not that interesting. Paul DeJong has a opt-out on April 27th. And if you notice, and again, I never know what AAA numbers mean because most guys who succeed in the minors struggle up here. Like Carson Bench lit it up last year. In the minor leagues, he's having trouble this year. It's as big a jump as it's ever been. But DeJong, for about the last 8 to 10 days, has really started to hit down there. I would suspect He's going to opt out on April 27th if the Yankees don't bring him up because he probably can fit in as somebody's backup infielder among the 30 teams. So in the short term, again, could the Yankees decide they'd rather have DeYoung as the righty hitter, take Grichuk off the roster, and again, then you're living with Rosario and Caballero as the backup righty
Right.
hitting outfielders. Feeling out process, it's not a lot of at-bats for Grichuk. But the one thing to point out is Grichuk, who historically was really good against lefties, it was not as good last year. Now, the Yankees insisted to me that the underlying numbers, his swing percentages in the zone, out of the zone, hitting the ball hard against lefties was the same. And he just was kind of unlucky. But he hasn't been unlucky this year. He's just been bad in the amount of at-bats he's had. He's looked overmatched. And we already saw the Mets swallow 1.75 million with Luis Garcia because again, they're a team playing for everything. And you kind of like, if you believe that Luis Garcia isn't going to make it to the finish line, then it's just the date that you're going to swallow it.
Right.
And I think that's what the Mets did. If you come to the belief that Randal Grichuk isn't going to make it to the finish line, then just trying to squeeze extra days to feel like you wasted less money is stupid to me. Look, you know how I felt. I always thought having Cade Winquist on the roster wasn't smart
No,
because I was just like, he's never going to make the 6 months.
but
He just wasn't.
he also wasn't used, and you're
Yeah,
basically.
but I don't feel like I know people talk about that. I don't feel like there was an obvious place they lost the game because
I'm
of
not
that.
talking about
I mean,
that, Joel, but it's more like you're missing another arm in your bullpen. You're playing a
yeah.
man short. Like, is that a smart thing
Well,
to do where you're putting more leverage on your other arms when, hey, it's always good, I
Well,
guess.
they were playing close games. Again, the good
Yeah.
news for the Yankees is they're good enough to play close games, and he was trying to find an easy landing spot for the guy's debut. I think if he knew, hey, we're not going to play a blowout for a while, he would have gotten him into a close game early and just seen what it looked like and dealt with the ramifications if it was a blowout. And then after a while, when it didn't happen, he's like, okay, like now I might as well just wait for the blowout, and it just didn't come.
Yeah. Interesting note about Dominguez. He's actually played 2 games in center field at AAA this year. So you see that they are trying to maybe get him some playing time there at center. I wonder if that's like you're talking about with Trent Grisham, like continue to earn your playing time there. And if he does go down with an injury, Dominguez maybe could have that opportunity to get called up. So, but yeah, not been a great start for Grichuk. The other thing we should hit the nail on the head here is McMahon. Obviously it is about as bad as you can have as a start. I thought it was interesting yesterday. The Rays clearly like, hey, Austin Wells, one pitch. We're gonna intentionally walk you. We'll take the matchup against McMahon. He grounds out on the first pitch. Doesn't even really give a competitive at bat there. What is your take on Ryan McMahon? Is this just, hey, they're gonna live and die with the 9-hole hitter being, the type of hitter he is right now?
Yeah, look, again, this is less than 3 weeks. I suspect Ryan McMahon will be what he's been, which is a below average offensive player, but better than this. Like the Yankee exchange for him was 650 OPS and 20 homers and great defense. Like he's far from 20 homers and 650. Now, 650 is below average, means you're going to have an 80 something OPS plus. You're going to be more than 10% below league average. But when the rest of the lineup is getting you to 800 runs and you're popping 20 homers to at least make yourself a threat, you're something. It can't be 300 or a 400 OPS. And that's what it's been early this season, maybe even less than that. Maybe it's in the 200s for all I know. And he still continues to have generally a good eye. He is a very strange offensive player for me because he just swings and misses at more hittable pitches than any other Yankee by a lot to me. He does not square up pitches that it seems to me he should be fully on the attack with. Um, it could be that it's just not going to be good enough. I still feel like the most important thing, if you have enough offense every place else and you have Fried and ultimately Rodon in your rotation, is you just can't mess around at third base. Like to some degree, the Yankees might have lost the game yesterday because Ahmad Rosario double clutched on a ball. and it's you got to be able to field the ball there. Um, Having said that, it's not been good. It's been worse. It's the expectation is below average. This has been subterranean below average. And so what do you give it? Do you give it another month to see if, like, when warm weather comes, you get on a little run at home where maybe his power shows up some? They're going to give more rope here. Nobody's playing particularly well in the American League or the American League East. And can I throw that something else in?
Yeah.
It was a wonky few days here. Like, again, a week ago, John Heyman and I on our podcast had on Matt Arnold because the Brewers were flying again. Over the weekend, the Brewers got swept by the Washington Nationals. The Blue Jays won the American League Championship last year, as every Yankee fan knows. They got swept over the weekend by Minnesota. Now, Minnesota and Washington have gotten off better than we expected. I think we still expect that they're going to both lose 85 to 95 games probably this year, both of those teams. Baseball's strange that way. There's some wonky stuff. The Mets just got swept by the A's at home.
Look, the Yankees
And
got lost 2 out of 3 to the A's as well, right? So, I mean.
Yeah, but we've seen some wonky stuff here early, and nobody's playing well in the American League. It's a way of saying, I think it's a thing that's come up often when we've done the shows over the years, Ryan. It's very easy to get myopic about the team you're talking about and the team you're a fan of, right? So you're looking at the Yankees, and the question isn't, do they have problems? They do. Every team has problems. Do they have less than everyone else? And do they have ways of shrinking the problems as the season goes along, either from the minor leagues or by having collateral to go out and make trades, wire things, a history of improving players as the season goes along? The Yankees have shown for 30 plus years they know how to play the regular season and get to a certain number of wins. So when the wonky stuff happens, I generally think they'll figure it out. But like, there's no way to defend McMahon's offense early this season, or really until the homer Austin Wells' offense, which I thought was going to be better also. I was encouraged by what I saw in the WBC, where in big moments, he was a man on a team of offensive juggernauts. He was a man on that team, and I thought that spoke well for him. Aside from Ben Rice, a little of Stanton, and Bellinger, they're not. Again, Judge has walks and homers, but just not a lot of impact early this year. So I'm that's not the area I'm being repetitive. It's just not
right. You're not as concerned about the lineup. I hear you.
I think Ryan McMahon ultimately will hit 17 homers and have a 645 OPS and hit ninth and be pinch hit for in every big spot between now and the last game the Yankees play this year.
Yeah, so look, that's the interesting part too, is because you're talking to me about, how do the Yankees assess themselves and how do they address concerns or issues when it's becoming a real concern or issue. With the McMahon thing, they're not just in it for this year. They're in it for next year as well for $16 million, right? So Yankees fans like myself are always going to be like, ooh, are they going to be prepared to eat this next year?
But don't you think, Ryan, one of the things we see with big teams now is big teams have dead money on their ledger.
100%.
Like almost every team does. So Hicks became LeMahieu. LeMahieu will probably become McMahon. I mean, I'll tell you, I think one of the miracles in all this, I thought at some point all of it would become Stanton.
Right. And
Stanton would be dead money. And to his credit, Stanton has continued to, when he's healthy enough, remain a really viable offensive player and help them. So like they're a year plus to the finish line on Stanton also. I thought that would, but I just think if you went and look, I mean, there was a couple of years ago where the Mets had like $80 million in debt. Like, I just think it's the reality. If you're playing in these pools, you're signing contracts and extending them out so you're paying less per year, and understanding on the back end you might have to take a big swallow.
Right, but that was part of the McMahon trade, right? Like they took all that money on and said, yes, we'll take this. The other thing I'll say, though, is I have to act in reality now because of the way Hal has commented and the way we've discussed about the Yankees payroll and how I know it's always at the top. But they do take into account like, hey, this dead money is going to count for us big time. Like we're going to be operating on this budget.
LeMahieu was part of their decision making this year. Whatever will be dead will be part of it. But whatever losses they've taken on this year, I don't think they're really a financial thing,
No.
right? Like the Yankees
No.
are third in the majors in payroll.
Yes.
And I always encourage, this is again something you and I talk about, and I'm being repetitive, is like there's not, a store on 51st and Madison where you get things like within. I was texting with one of my buddies who's like you, a big Yankee fan, and he was complaining and he was like this, and I said, "Weren't you the guy who told me that if they don't sign Amai, they're not even trying?" And he goes, "What?" I go, "Remember my answer to you back then was you've never seen Amai lift his arm, and you're saying that Hal's cheap if he doesn't go and sign him." Well, Amai has pitched badly and now might have to go on the IL. Starting pitching is the strength of the Yankees. So it's like it's in the off season. I hear how the Yankees have to sign 50 guys for a 26-man roster. And by the way, the Mets now live in this world under Steve Cohen also, where it's why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Early on this season, I did play the game a little bit like, okay, say they had a little more to spend. What would they have done? Like, it isn't like there's some obvious person who was available. I mean, I guess you can make a Bregman point, but I don't think Bregman's broken out well this year.
No. In terms of third base, I don't know if there was many options there. Obviously all Yankees fans will cry to the moon about the Kyle Tucker thing, but that was never a reality because they were in on Grisham and they ended up bringing back Cody Bellinger, which is what they needed to do.
Right.
But I think the McMahon thing is just interesting because they are in for him next year, like we said. How long of that it's a longer leash than obviously what Grichuk's going to get here over the next
It's
month.
a longer leash
Leash.
because the upside of McMahon makes him like major league average at third base because he's well above average as far as defense. The best version of him is well above average. He's a 2 to 3 WAR player when he's right.
We saw him play shortstop last week too for the first time.
Yeah.
Also,
if your ninth place hitter is a 2 to 3 WAR player, that's pretty good. Like, it's imperfect because what he doesn't do at the highest levels. He's going to have a very low batting average. He's going to have a very high strikeout percentage. But the best version of him fields well above average, walks well above average, and homers slightly above average. And so that is an average player who is your ninth place hitter if he gets there. Will he get there? The first 2.5 weeks haven't been encouraging. It's a long season. And I think if we were going to gamble on it, we would say, I bet you his OPS begins with a 6 by the end of the season, which takes him to that acceptable area as your ninth place hitter, bringing the other stuff he brings, which is a little bit of on-base percentage, a little bit of power, and a lot of defense.
Yeah, look, he's obviously not off to a good start at all. 4 for 35. His OPS is in the I think it's in the 300s or even less than that. It's not been good at all. Let's talk about real or unreal. Let's switch over to that part of the show. So we saw the first start of Leash for the 2026 season Friday night against the Rays. He goes 4 innings, gives up 3 runs, 2 strikeouts, 3 walks, gave up a homer. Talk to me, Joel, about what we saw from Leash. He did not generate much swing and miss, if at all, on his fastball or sinker. That is supposed to be his best pitch, I would say, is the velocity and how he's supposed to get high velocity from that pitch and get hopefully some swing and miss from that. What did you think of Leash start on Friday, real or unreal, and what we're seeing so far from him?
So I would say, again, like if I were trying to make some real in this feeling out period, what would concern me? He would concern me because he came back lesser. And we've seen there's been a lot of pitchers who've lost velocity early this season. I was at the Met game yesterday, and by the way, the results were great. And so maybe with Kraft, Sean Manaea can pitch with 4 miles of power, less fastball than he had even last year when I think he was down a little from the year before. He's lefty. He comes from a funky angle. He has some craft. If you've talked to Sean Manaea, he's whip smart. He could probably figure things out as things go along. I think people like Luis Gil and Camilo Doval are throwers. And if they lose velocity, I think it's significant, and not really sure survivable for what they do, because the walk numbers are going to be high for both guys. So they have to have the strikeout pitch as a way to bail them out of base runners. I also think that he'll, in both spring training and now, like there's going to be some homer susceptibility. And again, walks and homers become multiple run homers, which are killers. Um, he, that's one I assume once Rodon is healthy, he ends up back at AAA, to see if he can rediscover the guy we saw in the first half of the 2024 season. It could be that the first half of the 2024 season was an anomaly, was as good as it's ever going to be. And it was great. I mean, good enough to get him Rookie of the Year by the end of the year, good enough to fill in for Garrett Cole for those first like 10 weeks of that season while Cole was out, and help the team that would ultimately win the American League Championship. So he was very valuable and very good. We just have not seen that guy again. Um, and I am just wondering, in this age of ever increasing velocity, can you empty the tank even as a young pitcher to the point where you lose something? Because I am noticing there is a lot of pitchers who are down multiple miles per hour early this season. Um, some of them that is survivable. Um, for Duvall, for Hill, and I think even because I don't think he trusts his fastball, I wonder about Bednar also in that category, if they're going to deal with less, what it means.
Yeah.
Like if Garrett Cole comes back with less fastball off of Tommy John surgery, now he was throwing hard in spring, so maybe it will be fine. But I would believe in the guy's craft and his pitching intellect. Like he'll figure some stuff out. I'm not sure about like the Bednar Duval Hill combo. The Bednar like splitter curve, like gives him some weaponry. Still got to be able to throw your fastball and trust it. Uh, and I feel watching the game like he's running away from it.
Yeah, he's obviously pitched himself into a lot of trouble. There's definitely been contact on his fastball. There's also been he gets into really tricky, dirty situations as men on base, and always makes them like really testy situations. As for Luis Gil, I thought it was really it was tough. Like he lost a lot of control on the fastball, and you could tell he was overthrowing his slider. Like I think he dirted a couple of them where it was like, he just doesn't have consistent form in his delivery, it felt like. So I was wondering, is this really someone that we can trust going forward as a starting pitcher? Because I really do like Luis Gil. Like I think he has like potential if he reaches that full potential, because we saw it in 2024, like you said. It's just unfortunate that first start did not go well. The Rays were on top of him there. And the Rays overall
I think there's a similarity between him and Jason Dominguez, where it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if 2 weeks from now, if Rodon's ready to come back, whatever that period of time is, if Hill went down there and kind of worked on this away from like he's living in a place now where there's a mandate on every start. Hey, what's going on? So it's like I'm watching it with even Sean Manayo, like, with the questions they have, where's your velocity? Where's your velocity? And this is a much more, mature player and experienced guy, and is really, beloved teammate, very good with reporters, etc. And he's having to deal with, like, each time he pitches, and by the way, he's doing it in relief, like where he's getting asked this double whammy question. Hey, are you upset that you're still in relief when you were signed to be a starter? And where the heck is your velocity? And like Luis Gil's going to have to deal, unless like things click all of a sudden. And is he pitching Tuesday for the Yankees? Is he, or Wednesday?
Let me look at the
I
schedule.
think he's
starters.
got the Angels someplace in here early in the week.
Yeah, tonight is Warren, and then tomorrow will be Weathers, and then Wednesday is going to be Heel.
Yeah. So, maybe it will click in on Wednesday. Who knows? The weather is supposed to warm up.
Yeah, it's supposed to be nice this week in New York.
So maybe that will help, both the Yankee offense and Hill, being at home. But I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world when Rodon is ready to come back if Heel goes down there and could ever get on a 6-8 start run of, oh, velocity's back, slider's back, and now you're ready to do something. Because it just feels like he's been trying to recapture something while he's being judged over and over in the major leagues. And that's a really, really hard thing to do for the most seasoned player. He is not the most seasoned player.
No, he's certainly not. Joel, let's switch over to Joel's notebook. The Angels are coming to town. Mike Trout obviously is trying to.
Told you a good Angels story already with the scuba wear that they were wearing in October of 2009.
That was great.
Yeah.
It was actually.
Okay, I'll give you more Angels. What else you want from the?
No, I was gonna say it was actually Howie Kendrick at second for that series as well. So you talk about Ibar.
And Eric Ibar was the shortstop.
Yeah. So, but let's talk about Mike Trout. Look, Trout, New Jersey native. He's dealt with a ton of injuries the last couple of years with his knee. You got to speak to him this spring training before the season started and how he's trying to approach this year. Obviously, he didn't play in the World Baseball Classic for the Team USA. He was on the team 3 years prior to that. What more can you share about Mike Trout and when he's coming to New York here and how he's trying to basically survive the whole season and stay healthy?
Yeah, I go to Arizona every year. I try to make sure I stop in front of Mike Trout's locker at some point. You want to talk. There's an historically great player. Mike has always been really kind with his time and his insights. I thought he was particularly introspective this year when we chatted for like 10, 12 minutes early one morning at their facility. The reason I went to see him, I did it at a very specific time. Team USA was training for the World Baseball Classic about 3.5, 4 miles away from Diablo Stadium, where the Angels train. And I was like, I thought this was interesting. I hate to use the word sad. 3 years earlier, he had been the captain and the face of Team USA. This time around, he couldn't even get the insurance to be part of the team. And it was almost like the baseball world had gone on without Mike Trout, who 3 years beforehand is he is today, right? He's going to be a no-brainer Hall of Famer. But I'm not sure if Ernie Banks was this when he played. He was the great player who never played in the postseason throughout. Hit 500 homers, beloved player. Let's play two, he's famous for saying. But, the Cubs went all those years without making the playoffs, and he was a Cub for his whole career. And he never played in a playoff game. Mike Trout played in 3 playoff games, lost them all in 2014. Was a very young player. I believe he was the MVP that year. Forgive me, it's not in front of me. I think he went like 1 for 10 or something in that series. They haven't gone back. The Angels are the longest active drought in baseball. And I think it deprives the fans, the national fans, of seeing an historically great player in his prime, which is probably now gone, in the great showcase. And it's deprived Trout of like the thing that most great players get a chance to do, which is prove themselves or not prove themselves in these big moments where the world's watching and try to win a championship, which, I doubt if he, and look, he's condemned himself to this to some degree. He signed 2 long-term contracts with the Angels, who have kind of, had revealed what they've revealed about how they're run for a long time. So if he wanted to get out, he could have gotten out. He's never kind of publicly asked for a trade. I'm not sure he's that tradable unless they eat a lot of money now. In spring training, I did find it interesting. He had talked how much he had worked on his legs in the offseason. He had clearly lost some weight. He was going to play center field again. He was like, I'm just so much more comfortable and athletic playing center field. And he said, it's not like I feel like less wear and tear in center than right. And he didn't really want to be a DH. And so he wanted to play center field again. And look, I think the sport would be better if Mike Trout were playing big games. It's just like it feels like we're like the chance to see him play big games in his prime is past. And one of the things I always think about Ryan is like when him and Bryce Harper came up at about the same time, and there was a little bit of this Harper Trout or Trout Harper. And I think early on, everybody was Trout. He won 3 MVPs right away. When he didn't win, he finished second pretty much all the time. It was so clear what a great player he is. But like for a high, Trout is better than Harper. But I would take Harper's career 7 days a week and twice on Sunday because me personally, I couldn't play a career and not play big games. And Bryce Harper's played a ton of big games, and B played great in the postseason. It's part of his history is that he's done that. Like I just value winning and playing the big games and going for championships. And ultimately, Bryce Harper hasn't won one, winning championships. Like it's just like I would take a lot of guys' careers over greater players. Like I love Kyle Schwarber's career. I love Nathan Eovaldi's career because like they've played great at big moments without even being the greatest players in the game. Plus, like we're not going to pull a tin cup around for either of those guys. They've made hundreds of millions of dollars also. It's just Trout is very singular. I think you kind of read a little line. Was the line in my column? It's
Yeah.
like Daniel Day-Lewis playing dinner theater in Iowa. Like he's just been off Broadway
Well,
and out of our consciousness. I mean, so out of our consciousness that the World Baseball Classic just went on and like I'm with this guy who 3 years before was Mike Trout. He was the cap. He was judged 3 years
yeah.
before. And now he's just some guy getting ready for a team we think is going to be not very good.
And that's the
Can he
thing,
stay
right?
healthy?
That's the thing.
And
It's
it
the
just
team he plays
feels
for.
like,
It's the franchise that he plays for, and that's part of the
but
fascinating.
and look, like, do you want to give him credit? Because like what Mike will tell you, and he's told me multiple years, and he told me this year is when I win, I want it to be in the place where I put in all the blood, sweat, and tears. Like I have investment here. I don't want to chase the shiny object. So like on one hand, that's noble. On the other hand, it's futile because there's nothing that the Angels writ large as a management team organization has shown over the last decade to suggest it's going to get out of its own way
Right.
and succeed. And so to me, like at some point you owe it to your career if you're the great player to be like, get me out of here. And certainly don't sign that. And who am I to say the second contract was worth about $450 million? So he's taking care of multiple generations of Trout and he's going to the Hall of Fame. Is it possible I care more about his legacy than he does to that extent? Like, or fandom in America, the baseball fans care more? Maybe because like he's had a shot to get out and he valued other things. I don't want to knock those other things because A, they're noble, and B, he's going to the Hall of Fame and going to make over $500 million in his career.
Yeah.
So he's checked a lot of boxes that a baseball player wants, but to me, it feels both self-deprived, like he hasn't fully gotten everything, and that the people who love baseball around the world, like Otani played with him, which is like again amazing. Can you imagine having Otani and Trout in their prime and forget about making the playoffs? They never even finished above 500
It's
with
crazy.
those two.
It's
But
absolutely crazy.
Otani got out. He's been with the Dodgers 2 years. And not only has he won the 2 years, but you can't be a bigger star now because he's played on that stage that even like it's almost like it took the 2 years with the Dodgers for everyone to go, wow, Otani. When he was doing it for the Angels, but it was dinner theater in Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that I kind of wish he had gotten out and we would have seen him play Broadway. And I don't mean like people are going to say, oh, of course you want to see everyone come down. I'm talking metaphorically. Chicago, the Dodgers, hell, like Philadelphia. He's from not far from Philadelphia, like someplace else, where we would have gotten a shot like to see the great player on the biggest stage. And I think it's bad for him and certainly bad for the sport.
Well, Yankees fans get to see him up close and personal. This 3-game set here in New York and the Bronx. It's always fun to see Mike Trout play if you get the chance in person. Even in the current spot he is and how he's. I mean, he's actually not off to a bad start this year, but he's, in my opinion, always fun to watch, and he's a great player to watch. And like you said, all time.
Can I tell you something that like always stuck with me? As so my dad, rest his soul, was a huge baseball fan, loved the baseball. Uh, And my mom died young. And after my mom died, I talked to my dad on the phone every day until my dad passed. And invariably, we have ultimately talked about baseball, especially in baseball season. Um, and I'd always ask, like, Dad, like, what are you going to do today? And if the Yankees were playing in Anaheim, he goes, oh, I'm going to take a nap. I want to watch Trout play tonight, with a 10 o'clock start on the East Coast. And like, it sticks with me. Like my dad, who was a big baseball fan, he wanted to make sure, my dad who saw Mantle and Mays and a little bit of DiMaggio, because, games weren't on TV. He was alive, obviously, when DiMaggio played, but like, he didn't see him a lot. But he saw Mantle and Mays a ton. And, the other great players. And he'd always say to me, Trout stands with these guys. He's with these guys, like the young version of Trout stands with these guys. And it stuck with me that a real baseball fan like my dad would be like, I'm taking a nap because I want to watch Mike Trout play tonight. And it feels like everyone could have gotten to see him play in October, and we just haven't.
It's well said, Joel. Well said. Thank you again for sharing your insight, stories. We talked about weather. We talked about not politics. We talked about the Yankees, obviously, and the troubles they're going through right now. We'll see how they handle the Angels. They got the Royals after that, and then next week they're going to Fenway for the first time this season. Joel Sherman, that's an episode. We appreciate you as always, and we'll catch you next week, man.
Thanks, Ryan. All the best.